I am not gonna sugarcoat things. The OnePlus 15 is pretty awesome. There's so much to like about it, and so far, I've enjoyed using it. But if I told you this phone was being well received by the internet, I'd be lying to your face. It's hilarious because most of the people trashing the phone haven't even sniffed one, much less used one. For many, the focus is on what the phone doesn't have, which has unfortunately led to the overshadowing of what it does have. It's not perfect by any means, but show me a perfect phone and I'll eat my bread 11s.
Stop it.
As someone who actually owns the thing, let me tell you why I think it's awesome. By now, I'm sure you've seen the main specs. If you haven't yet, here you go. Lots of great stuff here, just a slew of new goodies, and it all contributes to an extremely fast, smooth, clean, and powerful user experience. They switched up the build too. They opted to fall in line with some pretty familiar design language. I'm not mad at that. I think the phone looks very nice, though the 13 was more comfortable to hold in my opinion. This is still a comfortable phone to hang on to though. It's a little bit thinner too. The frame and the camera module went through a special process to give them a ceramic grade finish. It's supposed to be more resistant than titanium and tougher than regular aluminum. We'll see how this holds up over time, but so far, so good. The frame gets nice and cool to the touch in the morning. And then on this sandstorm color, the back is actually plastic. Sorry, fiber reinforced plastic. So fiberglass, which is plastic. The other two colors have glass backs. Very interesting. It's not a huge deal for me though. Sure, it's not as premium and as scratch resistant as glass, but at least it won't shatter like glass. This material combo is pretty slick, it feels good, and while it's not the same thing, it did make me think of the Pixel 4 XL and its coated frame, which is a good thing. I like it. It's different. Along with the new materials, they added on to the already advanced IP69 rating with IP69K, just because they can. To my understanding, the K represents pressure, so yeah, it's simply one of the toughest, if not the toughest flagship level phone out there right now. Something else that's different, this. Yeah. RIP alert slider. It's sad. It was a unique feature that I really wished other phones had. Being able to swap between ring, vibrate, and silent without even looking at the phone was always a bonus. Now, if you're going to swap to a full-on button, I can get on board with that as long as you allow for complete customization capabilities. Well, for now, there isn't much of that here. You can only map it to do one thing at a time via a long press. It allows me to do a single, double, and long press when it's set to mind space, so the functionality is there, but at some point I'm gonna need the ability to launch whatever the heck I want with all three of those button presses, please and thank you. The fingerprint scanner works as it should, no issues there. Oh, and the speakers got retuned. At first I was kind of disappointed because I felt that they lacked bass, which they do, but only relative to speakers from some other high-end phones. I'm not an audio professional, but they sound well balanced to me. Vocals come through crystal clear, they don't sound like they're coming through a tin can, and while low end takes a bit of a backseat here, bass response is still rock solid and it doesn't sound muddy. So the speakers get a thumbs up from me. I'm almost 30, which means I've not only reached unk status, but also the my back hurts for no reason phase of life. Sitting for long periods of time is part of the job, so I figured why not sit in something that doesn't actively hate me? This is the HBADA E3 Pro, and first off, this chair looks good, like actually good. The E3 won legit awards last year. Basically, it doesn't look like it belongs in a dentist waiting room. It's comfortable too, which is the most important thing. It's got fully breathable mesh, so you're not peeling yourself off of it after a few hours. The lumbar support has this floating wing design. You can adjust it front to back, up and down. It rotates 40 degrees, and it wraps around your lower back no matter how you're sitting. I've been sitting, editing this video for hours, and my back doesn't hate me, which is wild. The headrest moves up and down, it rotates, adjusts forward and back. It actually supports your neck instead of just existing, and the armrests? 6-direction adjustment. Up, down, left, right, forward, back, they rotate, they fold up. It really doesn't matter how you want to sit, they got you covered. Oh, and the chair reclines 140 degrees with a built-in footrest. I'm in this chair for work, for gaming, personal projects, all of it. So when I'm completely fried and need a power nap, boom, I'm right here, feet up, living my best life. The E3 Pro is linked below. Your back will thank you, your posture will thank you, and your productivity will likely improve because you're not constantly shifting around trying to find a comfortable position that doesn't exist. Huge thanks to the creator of the E3 Pro and award-winning ergonomic chair, HBADA, for supporting the channel and sponsoring this portion of today's video. If you're not chronically online, then, well, first of all, congratulations. Please make sure you keep it that way. But also, you might be curious as to what people are making a big stink about. Well, for starters, the display resolution. OnePlus lowered it from 3168 by 1440 to 2772 by 1272. Having 165Hz with that higher resolution wasn't possible. Being totally honest, I can't tell the difference. Now remember, this is a sub 7-inch display. If you told me this was a 2K display, I'd believe you. Call it a skill issue. I'm just being real here. I can understand the disappointment though. As of now, there's barely anything that can take full advantage of 165Hz. Just a handful of games. That's it. Other than that, it'll be running at 120 most of the time. Could they have done a 1440p display at 144Hz instead? Maybe? Perhaps, but you know OnePlus, always looking to push the envelope wherever they possibly can, and at the very least, it's definitely future-proof for gaming, which is cool. Either way, 1.5K, 2K, red K, and blue K, it's still a good display. It's bright, crisp, colorful, it can dim all the way down to 1 nit and even down to a half nit when you enable the reduce white point option in accessibility settings, which is kinda crazy, and the bezels are super thin and symmetrical all the way around. It gets the eye candy stamp of approval. All in all, I don't think you'll be watching movies, TV shows, and scrolling TikTok complaining about the resolution. On a lesser note, there have been complaints about the haptics. Unfortunately, they are indeed softer than what the OnePlus 13 has, and it's noticeable especially when you use them side by side. But as someone who greatly appreciates good haptics, I don't think they're awful here. They're still crisp, just not as prominent. It's not a deal breaker to me, though I am crossing my fingers that they address this in the next phone. Kind of a bummer that these took a step back. So yeah, I'm not gonna sit here with fake rage shaking my fist at things that don't genuinely upset me on a deep level. What I'm more disappointed about are the missing anti-reflective coating on the display and Qi 2 magnets. Two things that are, in my opinion, game changers and should 100% be here. I know OnePlus has accessories that can take care of those things, which is cool, don't get me wrong. I think they've done a great job with their accessory game, but to me, these should be standard features at this point. Let's get it, OnePlus. Chop chop. Did I really just say chop? Good grief. So like I said earlier, performance is outstanding. Downloads, data transfers, multitasking, general everyday use, it's all handled exceptionally well thanks to the upgraded internals. It is straight butter. If you know, you know. And of course, it gets even better with the good old 0.5x animation scale settings and developer options, which in turn means this goofy application open and close spam test is better too. For those that like that, here you go. You're welcome. I tried out a couple of games that are compatible with 165Hz, and I can't lie, OnePlus might be onto something. This in tandem with that touch sampling rate chip makes things uber responsive, so as compatibility expands, the hardcore gamers out there are gonna be eating good for sure. And no, it didn't overheat in my testing. That was another concern that the internet was very vocal about. There's a certain benchmark test that apparently puts the phone through the ringer. I don't put much stock into that personally, or any benchmark for that matter, and specific tests like those are literally made to push phones to their max limit, something normal people probably won't do. Now, let's not get it twisted. The phone absolutely runs quite warm during extended gaming sessions with maxed out settings, and if you push it for longer than I did, you might encounter some throttling action, but again, those are under extreme conditions, and at least in my testing, even with challenging emulation, the heat never reached a point that was a cause for concern. The thermals seem to be good here, and that new vapor chamber is putting in work for sure. Battery life. Man, there really isn't much to say here other than it's incredible. Easily one of the best things about this phone. I still want to do more testing, but I think it's safe to say that it's a 2-day battery, and with certain usage patterns, you could squeeze out a little more. For example, there was one instance where I unplugged the phone around 8 AM, and it reached 3% at 8:11 PM the next day. So around 40 hours on a charge, I reached a whopping 17 hours of screen on time. That was with moderate casual use. It was no doubt an outlier. I don't average that, of course, but still. So far, regardless of how I use the phone, I'm not killing the battery in one day, or at least it hasn't happened yet. We'll see how this adjusts over time. And you already know about the super fast charging speeds, still 80 watts here in the States, and now 120 watts in other regions, up from 100 watts. That's pretty sick. OxygenOS 16 has been pretty good, all things considered. I like the lock screen customizations with the Flux themes. I like the size adjustable folders on the home screen. You can stack and rename widgets. You can expand app icons and add shortcuts to some of them. It's great to see the motion cues feature here to help with motion sickness in moving vehicles. Shout out to that. You can of course share files with iPhone and Mac provided the proper apps are installed. There's parallel processing 2.0, which just adds on to the already incredibly fluid UX. There's a handful of AI features that I admittedly haven't given a fair shake yet, but I am kind of intrigued by the new Mindspace app, mainly due to its Google Gemini integration. It seems to work well so far though. Now I do have a few nitpicks. I wasn't a huge fan of that AI writer prompt being on by default, so I went and turned that off. Notification icons in the status bar still stick out like a sore thumb, so I just swapped to the number indicator for a cleaner look. I wasn't a fan of the fact that lock screen widgets aren't available in North America yet as of this video. Maybe there are some regulations they have to deal with. It's pretty odd either way. 4x1 widgets don't seem to be stackable, and just like with Color OS, I had to manually enable the ability to launch the camera with a double press of the power button. Usually, this is a default function in OxygenOS. Not anymore, it seems, and every so often I have to go back into the settings to enable it again, which is pretty annoying. Alright, so the cameras. They really are trash. I'm kidding. I gotta keep you on your toes. Yes, I know, smaller sensors and smaller apertures, no more Hasselblad, all that fun stuff. They're not the best, but personally, I think these cameras are actually good. Take a look. OnePlus is putting a lot of faith in their new Detail Max engine. The idea here is that no matter the sensor, computational photography will do a lot of the heavy lifting, which, to be fair, really is the case for all of these phones, not just this one. Now that's not to say that camera hardware isn't important, it obviously is, but I guess they had to cut costs somewhere to keep the price of the phone the same as what the 13 was at launch, so this is one of the areas they picked, and they're confident it'll work out. But even with these smaller sensors, I think they push out some nice results. They're sharp, detailed, with good color and dynamic range. I got plenty of snaps that I can just easily share online or anywhere else without having to edit them. Now, portrait mode will miss the mark here and there, that's to be expected. Auto white balance misses the mark sometimes too, like in this shot, it's very blue. I also dealt with some pretty strong lens flares, and I would definitely like to see some more consistency and continuity between the lenses. Indoor and low light shots are where you'll see the sensors struggle a good amount with those smaller apertures. I do need to test this more, to be fair. Zoom shots aren't amazing, but the AI processing actually helps out a significant amount. It's local on-device processing too, which is good. Video quality is solid. The stabilization is notably good. You can record in log format, and you can record slow-mo in 4K, 120 FPS, and Dolby Vision. If I'm not mistaken, this is one of the first Android devices to have this, which is really cool. In my opinion, the idea that these cameras are straight up bad has got to go. They are by no means perfect, and I'm really going to need OnePlus to focus on better camera hardware again moving forward. Pun slightly intended. What's a little encouraging for the 15 anyway, is that until that happens, what these cameras push out can still get better with software updates. We've seen it happen before, and I fully expect OnePlus to gather data to help improve this new engine of theirs. Take this for what you will. I don't think the cameras are a big reason to buy this phone, but I also don't think they're a reason to avoid buying this phone. There are a number of things to keep in mind here. For one, it starts at $899. I think what many of us tend to forget is that this phone automatically gets compared to the Ultras and the Pros and the Pro Maxes of the world, but it's priced unlike all of those. Now apparently the starting price in India did go up, which is not a good look. Also, this isn't the only awesome phone around. There are a lot of other awesome Android devices out there, and there's OnePlus's very own 13, which is going to be a hidden gem moving forward. Don't sleep on that one. But like I said earlier, personally, I think this phone is pretty awesome. OnePlus has some work to do for sure, but it is absolutely worth considering. It's okay if you disagree. Look, I get it. It's not fun seeing certain parts of a phone moonwalk into a downgrade. I really don't like when that happens either, and I think people have a right to be frustrated, but only to an extent, because some take things way too far. Here's the thing, there is no question the downsides of this phone are real, and in no way, shape, or form am I asking you to ignore these things. I'm also not going to sit here and try to sell you this phone or try to excuse OnePlus for some of the directions they decided to go in. My job is to, at the very least, remind you to look at the full body of work, the bad and the good, so that you can make up your mind for yourself. Let me know your thoughts. I want to hear from you. Drop a potato if you're part of the potato gang. You are awesome, and thank you so much for watching.